Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to be looking at Creatures of the Apocalypse Codex. This is for the Mutant Epoch game. This is by Goringer, Seedhouse, Robertson, Butler, and McAuslin. And William McAuslin is the guy in charge of this company, which is Outland Arts. Side note, I find Seedhouse to be a really cool name. And the cover is full of mutant things. Now, I received this as a gift. It was both for a review copy and a Christmas gift. And it came out of the blue. I didn't know I was getting it. Just showed up in the mail. And he was nice enough to send me the color version. A black and white version is also available, which obviously is going to have a lower price point than would be the color version. The first thing is, I thought it was kind of cool, is that the table of contents it's got a little thumbnail of each monster. I thought that was kind of cool because it kind of looked at it's kind of like looking at like Pokemon characters. It's like a little blurb and then a name under it. And we have in here the Sicklefoot, the Red Harvester, the Spikeback, the Junk Mobster, the Bogbilly, the Scrap Lurker, the Back Launcher, the Quasi, the Spiker, the Wailing Johnny, the Tyrannosapien, the Chest Head, Talentessa, based on talons, as in like or Talentessa, the Muto Harpy, the Walking Mouther, Rubble Troll, Snakekin, Nublins, the Apocalypse Moth, and the Spider Lord. And there's also in here counter tables and player handout versions. And the nice thing about the player handout versions is that they are big splash pages. So you could you see this, and you could literally just pop that at a group. And I found that to be a very effective way, particularly if you do it quickly. So if you have the single sheet, for example, and you can just go funk over a GM screen and pull it back down again, that'll only let them have a glimpse. And under the right circumstances, that's all they may see in the real world. So if they were actually encountering the creature, like you see a creature in the wild, you may not get a full-on I'm staring at the creature. It may be behind rubble or behind a tree or something else that you're looking out of a hole or into a hole. So that blurb can leave an impression on the mind without giving away all the details. So I think that reflects the real world very effectively. And I gotta tell you, some of these names seem a little weird, like Muto Harpy. I think they'd probably just call them Harpies. Because, let's face it, they fit that vibe, and I don't have any reason that the myths of Harpies are going to go away in the apocalypse. So, I think that calling that would be appropriate. And a couple of these really do sound like perfectly reasonable names, like the Chest Head. It's got heads in its chest. That's exactly how people would describe it. And one of the things I've noticed is particularly when you're looking at thumbnails, there's a lot of human-based mutations in this world, which is kind of intriguing. Because a lot of these things look like they were based off of humans, severely mutated humans. And that's intriguing to me because humans have a pretty long life cycle, as far as breeding cycle. So I would think that the mutations would take a little longer to get to for a lot of these creatures, unless they were some of them were engineered, but some of them wouldn't be. I think that animals would be more common because the shorter the life cycle, the more cycles you can have, the more possibility there are of further and further mutation deviation from what we have now. Maybe Will just likes mutant-style humans, which is perfectly normal. It's his campaign. And what you have in here, of course, each creature is going to have its stat block, defense, value, endurance, movement, initiative, attacks, strike value, damage, strength, agility, accuracy, intelligence, willpower, perception, valuables, experience factors, morale, size, weight, mutations, percentage of and how many possible relics, and how many possible implants, because some of these things could be augmented by technology. Now, one of the things I love about what Will does with creatures is that you have the base creature, and there's a percentage chance of a mutation. So you could run these creatures right out of the book. Boom, there you go. GM has to do nothing. Or put a little more work in there, and you throw a mutation in. And for example, I'm looking at the Sicklefoot because it's the first one, and it says there's a 23% chance of one mutation. Okay, so that's really easy. A GM could do that on the fly. You roll 20. Okay, you roll 23% under. Good. you're good to go. You roll on the chart, which I think is 1 to 20. 1 to 20, boom. For example, this one you can roll 2, it's a screamer. The sickle foot shouts when within 10 meters of prey, screaming so loud that those not wearing earring protection or combat or better relic helmet must make an agility-based type A hazard check to cover their ears in time or be deafened for D20 plus 20 minutes. Bingo. That increases the threat level and puts variety in there. So you could have multiples of these creatures in the same party and have them have a variety of abilities which can really confound a party. Another thing you can do is if they only encounter these things occasionally and they're always encountering mutant versions of them, they may never really make a complete connection that they are the same species, which throws variety in there for the GM without having to do any extra work on their part. All right, and if a GM is really ambitious, because some of these creatures are going to have multiple chances of multiple mutations, so that's, that makes perfect sense. Then you can have a group that's really mixed and covering a lot of bases, really throwing a lot at the party. Of course, it's more work on the part of the GM, so, you have to take that with what, it comes with the territory. But you have some really great viability there to really stretch a party's skill base. Like you're going to have to be dealing with all kinds of things. You're talking about mutation attacks, energy attacks, ranged attacks, mental attacks. You could be doing all kinds of things all at the same time to making a very dynamic encounter off a base creature. And if they've encountered the base creature before that didn't have any mutations, they may be doubly as unexpected to be hit with something. Of course, in the world like this, maybe you get to the point in life where you expect everything to do anything. To make for a very paranoid worldview. For example, the Red Harvester has an energy blade. And that energy blade can have different possible functions, like it could be radiation, electrical, a trait drain. That could be deadly, particularly if your character has a low score in whatever trait that this thing is going after. Excuse me. So that could really cripple a person quickly or take them out of the fight until they get some kind of really serious medical attention. And the fact that he puts the mutation random options in each stat page description, I think is really useful. And not only that, but it also gives you a random set of mutations. So even if you're not applying this to that monster, you could still use them as a chart. And there's at least one in here that has a treasure chart built right in there. And of course, a random set of treasure chart. Here's one that's, I just hit this one, which is the junk mobster, which I kind of like the use of the net. I think that was a nice touch. Nets are really useful weapons in my book and can be quite dangerous because they can reduce your mobility, which suddenly pins somebody in place, and that can be a bad thing when you're in combat. Loot tables are always good. Always. There's never a time when a loot table is not useful. So you can reuse those time and time again. And because you have multiple resources, it's unlikely the players are ever going to get bored with them because you're not likely to hit the same thing so many times that it's going to become predictable. It's like, oh, we're getting that again. But it could be, oh, we're getting that type of thing again. But that's how it works in the real world, I frequent thrift shops, and over time, you see a pattern of what kinds of things you find. And that's kind of going to be like what it's like when you're finding loot in a post-apocalyptic world. You're going to discover there's a pattern of the type of things you find. Actually, there's a lot of parallels between looking for loot in a Fallout-style world and looking through the detritus of a thrift shop. Here's bait items scattered by bogbillies, which is things that will hopefully, draw in potential victims. Nice touch. Also, this is good. Like this one has a nice little map of a thumbnail sketch of where this thing could be found. A lot of reuse for there, because if they think, oh, they'll be tricked into that, turn it 90 degrees and reuse it. And I can guarantee you they're not going to catch on particularly if you want to use section of it. You know, that kind of thing is definitely doable. Sorry, I've been blathering for longer than I thought I was. I'm slightly under the weather today, so I may be a little off my game when it comes to focus. I apologize. And also, he throws in these almost like textbook sketches, so they're like two-tone, and I really happen to like that. I do. I kind of like that. It's the kind of thing you almost see in a like something with Charles Darwin would sketch down this in the corner of a page to show that, you know, what this thing looks like and compare it to something else. And I like that kind of that vibe it gives. I enjoy that. And here, this thing right here, this creature right there, which is known as a spiker, I like the idea of a biological weapon that can launch spikes. Makes me think of the spiked tail of the manticore from the classic D&D monster, which is cool in my book. I always like that. Here we have Wailing Johnny discarded item table. Again, more random stuff. Here's the chest head, which is very cool. Very, very cool. And again, the perfect name, though they're probably not going to call themselves that. They may have a different name. That'd be intriguing. What do these things call themselves? That's a good question. He describes this thing as beautiful, and I guess that's going to be a broad definition of beauty. It's not my thing, but you know, for some, I'm sure that it is. The Talentessa mutation table. It also gives an option in here for Talentessa player characters, which is nice. Variety is a good thing. Now this picture is a little more reasonable. That looks a little more traditionally attractive, and done in that sketch style, which I happen to enjoy so much. So if you're looking for a nice selection of monsters, and if you decide to spring for the color version, you're going to have some wonderful illustrations, lots of possible mutations, treasures, rubble, finds. Just there's a lot of playability in these supplements, and the snake skins or snakehins are cool. I've always liked the anthro style creatures like this, and it's a good illustration. There's a lot of playability in Will's work. There really is. And even if you're not running the Mutant Epoch, I still think there's a lot of utility here for people who are using, say, the Mutant Future, or they're running old school Gamma World, like my favorite version, which is the 1992. I could use this right here, and I could take it on the fly, and I could adapt it in use without any modification. Yes, the stats are completely different, but endurance is endurance. Agility is agility. Strength is strength. There are things that are equally across the board. Yeah, that's called endurance in one game and constitution in another, but who cares? Gives you a rough idea of how tough they are, and that's all you need. You know the scale. You're a competent GM, or even a new GM. You can pull this off. This is definitely something I think anyone who's playing the Mutant Epoch is going to want, because it's going to give you new monsters to throw at your players, mutation charts, loot charts, good illustrations. It's a win-win. You can't lose with this supplement. You really can't. I like it. I'm really glad I got it in my collection. And I thank you, Will, for sending me a copy, because it's always nice to get a surprise in the mail. I got it in the mail. I'm like, what's this? Woohoo! A gift. So go out, get yourself a copy, and I think it's completely applicable to any other post-apocalyptic game that you want to play.